Hi, I'm Radhika. I was born and raised in India in the Hare Krishna movement. Um, if you want to know more about that, I suggest you see my last video. In this video, I'm going to talk about Hare Krishna views on sex and sexuality. Why talk about that? Well, because Hare Krishnas make a big deal about sex, and so it's important to talk about it. One of the 4 vows you have to take when you become a Hare Krishna is not to have illicit sex. According to the HareKrishnaTemple.com, cleanliness is destroyed by illicit sex. This is sex outside of marriage or any sex for any purpose other than procreation. Sex for pleasure compels one to identify with the body and prevents one from understanding Krishna consciousness. Illicit sex includes masturbation. Masturbation is an illicit form of sex life as described in Prabhupada's purport in the Nectar of Instruction. As far as the urges of the genitals are concerned, there are 2, proper and improper, or legal and illicit sex. When a man is properly mature, he can marry according to the rules and regulations in the Shastra, and use his genitals for begetting nice children. That is legal and religious. Otherwise, he may adopt many artificial means to satisfy the demands of his genitals, and he may not use any restraint. When one indulges in illicit sex, as defined by the Shastras, either by thinking, planning, talking about it, or actually having sexual intercourse, or by satisfying the genitals by artificial means, he is caught in the clutch of Maya. Since masturbation is a deliberate act of the will, it should be stopped as soon as the first stages occur. So basically, if you're ever going to stimulate yourself sexually for pleasure, that is sinful. So kids, don't masturbate. No. What is the punishment for illicit sex? Well, let the Srimad Bhagavatam tell you. A man or woman who indulges in sexual intercourse with an unworthy member of the opposite sex, that's pretty vague, but okay, is punished after death by the assistance of Yamaraj in the hell known as Tapta Shurmi. There, such men and women are beaten with whips. The man is forced to embrace a red-hot iron form of a woman, and the woman is forced to embrace a similar form of a man. Such is the punishment for illicit sex. In continuation, a person who indulges in sex indiscriminately, even with animals, is taken after death to the hell known as Vajrakantaka Shalmali. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but whatever. In this hell, there is a silk cotton tree full of thorns as strong as thunderbolts. The agents of Yamaraj hang the sinful man on that tree and pull him down forcibly, so that the thorns very severely tear his body. Ooh, sounds like fun. So basically, you can only have sex in order to make babies. Sex for pleasure is sinful, and you will be tortured in hell. What does this mean for the LGBT community? Well, that's so complicated, I'm going to have to make a whole other video for it. So when you're done with this one, I strongly recommend you check out the next one. So how does this mentality about illicit sex affect Hare Krishna people? Well, why don't we start from when we're very young. In a letter that Prabhupada wrote to a teacher regarding co-ed classrooms, he said, "When they are grown up, at about 10 to 12 years old, then you can make separate departments for teaching also. But while they are young, although they must live in separate boys' and girls' quarters, they may be educated sometimes together. There is no such restriction that little girls should not have association with little boys, not until they are grown up. When my friends and I were kids, we were allowed to play with boys until we were about 11 or 12 years old. After that, we started to get criticism if we even talked to boys. We were also criticized if we wore jeans or shorts after the age of 12. So we had to start wearing long skirts and covering our heads when we went to the temple. Although that didn't always apply because that's just so impractical. Now one might ask, why separate boys and girls? Allow the Srimad Bhagavatam to illuminate the situation. Once a woman is given the freedom to mingle with all kinds of men in her youth, it is very difficult for her to keep chaste. she generally cannot remain chaste. When butter is brought into the proximity of fire, it melts. The woman is like fire, and man is like butter. So basically, what he's saying is, if girls hang around with boys, then boys will try to sleep with her. And by sleep, I mean have sex. Woman is compared to fire, and man is compared to a butter pot. Therefore, a man should avoid associating even with his own daughter in a secluded place. What he's saying here, in case you didn't catch that, is if a man spends time with his own daughter, there is a possibility or a probability that he will try to have sex with her. He really didn't think much of willpower in men, did he? I think maybe he could have used a little more Green Lantern in his life, really understand what it means to have willpower. But yeah, Similarly, he should also avoid association with other women. One should associate with women only for important business and not otherwise. If a butter pot and fire are kept together, the butter within the pot will certainly melt. However advanced one may be in restraining the senses, it is almost impossible for a man to keep himself controlled in the presence of a woman, even if she is his own daughter, mother, or sister. Indeed, his mind is agitated even if one is in the renounced order of life. Therefore, Vedic civilization carefully restricts mingling between men and women. If one cannot understand the basic principle of restraining association between man and woman, he is considered to be an animal. I think what Prabhupada didn't know, maybe he should have taken some biology lessons, is that all human beings are part of the animal kingdom. Like, we are actually animals. We're mammals, just like whales, just like dogs, just like monkeys. Get over it. So, how does this affect a boy's mind? Well, some of my friends, after I turned 12, were so afraid of being tempted by us women that they stopped talking to us. They didn't even look at us, which was really tragic because they were my friends. You know, you grow up with somebody, you hang out, you have fun, and then suddenly they're terrified of you because they think that you're going to melt them. Yeah. Is that healthy? I don't think so. However, at some point, Hare Krishna kids become teenagers, and teenagers sometimes become quite rebellious. So, let me just tell you a little story to illustrate my point. One time, when I was about 19 or 20 years old, I observed a group of boys sitting on a temple staircase, talking about the calluses that they got on their hands from playing the mridanga, the drum. They were comparing how big and hard their calluses were. I wonder what this symbolizes. I wouldn't know, because I don't have calluses. Although I'm pretty sure that Freud would have something to say about that. He might say, you have callus envy. Yeah, I don't. In order to drive that point home, I once saw a demonstration at a festival, and there were these boys on stage doing a mridanga performance. And at one point, one of the boys is playing his drum, all macho, and he stops, looks at the crowd, and says, "Who's your Pita?" And in case you don't know, Pita is the word for father in Sanskrit. So he's literally saying, "Who's your daddy?" after banging a drum. Yeah, that was pretty obvious there. Like, there's really no way that you can cover that and be like, no, that's not what he meant. That's what he meant. On the other hand, you also have girls who dress very extravagantly, especially when they're teenagers, or wear these like tight cholis and these really pretty outfits that they get custom made in India, you know, silk skirts and these beautiful scarves, and they're just so gorgeous. And they put a lot of effort into looking attractive and dancing in an attractive way. Why? Because they want everyone to think they're hot, because they want attention, because they like it. Being pretty is an enjoyable experience. So what? Really? So what if they're comparing calluses? So what if they're wearing small cholis? Does it surprise you that human beings have a sexuality? Sexuality is in human nature, survival of the species. We are hard-coded in our DNA to have sexual urges in order to reproduce, in order to continue the human race. If we weren't like this, we would be endangered just like the pandas, and then we'd have some real problems. All this repression and controlling of sex and sexuality. It's not healthy. I would encourage anybody who's grown up Hare Krishna like I did to learn a little bit about sex. You don't have to go on a sex spree or anything. Just take sex ed. Know what it's about. You can watch some videos by Lacey Green. She really is quite good at explaining about things about sex, how to take care of yourself, how to use protection, what are the good things and bad things about sex. So definitely recommend Lacey Green. I think that's all I have to say for now. Let's go on to Hare Krishna LGBTs.